Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wa Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu salam ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wa inna Allah wa sunnatuhu wa shariatuhu hiya afdal min hakimiyati. My dear brothers and sisters, today I will try to go on a journey here about what's happened in the last couple of weeks with Niger. And try to make some sense of some of this. But it's been very fluid because it changes every single day. There's changes. But there's something that's been uncovered because now since the Ecowas has been moved to the forefront, now the whole world knows who this body is. There's some things that we should know about it, and we should be very concerned about it as well. And it's been exposed. And with that said, I will get into some of that, and I'm going to give you some of my recommendations about their ideas and what they're trying to accomplish. Okay, let me see what we got here. Oh, Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi katu, Lil Oti Karima. How you doing? Thank you for showing up today. And we have a dilemma on our hands, brothers and sisters, because we have out of control governments, and they are being backed by Western powers. We know that. And the Niger situation is very complex, as you've been following in the news. It's very, very complex. You have a lot of players. You have threats of invasion, counter invasion. Then you have the Wagner group saying they're going to back the brothers from Mali and Burkina Faso if they join in the fray. Then you got the Americans and the French who are making some headways about they will join in the fray to help Ecowas. I mean, it's a mess. All because of this coup that took place in Niger. And as you've been hearing me talk previous weeks about the Muslim side of this, that we cannot overthrow these governments on a whim. And even though this was a bloodless coup where no one was shot and killed and so forth and so on, but the repercussions is still very, very telling. Well, let me give you my felicitations. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh lil ikhwani ikhwati fi din wa salamu ala mani tabahuda lil ikhwani ikhwati fi Afrika, Europa, America, Caribbean wa kulli makan. Halin wa salim bikum anzarama, my Full Bay community. So let's look into this here now. The Ecowas has been exposed in that it is now champion democracy. We know of a case in the Gambia where they bullied the Gambia to bring them back to quote unquote the democratic ways and means. We know this is the case. And the Ecowas was trying to do the same thing with Niger, but they found out Niger was going to have some additional players to back their play. The Gambian government did not have such an apparatus and other leaders to back them up. So they relentless. They relinquished what they were. Their mode was what they were going to try to do, and so they went back to quote unquote democracy. And so we'll get into this and ask these questions, and I'm gonna give you my recommendations because I said again, and I've said this many times, that in West Africa alone, it's been if you look at the history, Islamic governance has been the rule of the day in West Africa from the 711s to the 1800s. It's only in the recent 200 years now that we've had colonial rule, then we had makeshift so-called democracy, and we still have not got democracy right because it's not for us. Our ancestors who ruled all of these sultanates and the emirates did not use democratic ways and means. And you can look at all of the famous. The last remaining one was Usman Ben Fodio. He ran the Sharia, and his governance ran the Sharia. And in my personal opinion, if the Ecowas was present at this time, our dear brother, ancestral brother, would have fought them, because he would not allow democratic ways and means to come in to try to overshadow Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's governance. There's no way. Omar Dao, out of the area of Senegal, remember him? Hapolar, okay? Our brothers, he wouldn't have tolerated either. Okay, I'll say this now. You look at Samori Touré, he would have never allowed it. He would have fought it, and he did fight it. He fought for 20 years with muskets and bows and arrows. And we look all the way down, Askia Mohammed, Mansa Musa. We look at all of these. They were running the Sharia. So now we have another group who essentially is backed by the Tubab. And it's Ecowas, since they have jumped into the fray now and the worldwide recognition, because now who's championing them? Let's look at that. Who's championing? The brothers on the continent know what they're about. The Tubab outside and those who are living here are championing them because they want people like this to go, because they will fight black faces for them. They go to the Ecowas and tell them, look, you know, these Negroes over here, it's in Niger, we want them to do this. And you go and you know, like a dog, and they order them and they give them a couple of million and say, you go and fight them. And this is what is happening. They're not true players. The laws of Islamic governance would solve virtually majority of our problems, period. If you look at our ancestral brothers when they ruled, we've had these problems before. You think it's new? You don't think the farmers and the herdsmen have problems? They have problems for hundreds of years. On and off, they had dilemma. But they had the Sharia to go back to. And if you look at the worldwide cities and countries, this global index, they rated the atonement in history. Do you see a great majority were Muslims? Huh? Interesting, isn't it? Muslims. Muslim emirates or sultanates were some of the most wealthiest in world history. And the wealthiest man was a Muslim, Mansa Musa, out of Africa. No, he was not out of France or Germany. No, he was out of Mali. See, so again, I am pushing again for our leaders to go back and look back at our ancestral brothers, how they ruled. It's in modern times now we have disrespected our ancestral elders. We're not learning from them, and those who bring them up are deemed terrorists. Everything from land disputes, banking, how we handle banditry. Let me tell you something. You know, brothers and sisters, let's look at something for a minute here. This is not off topic. If you see the areas that many of the Mujahideen groups control, there's no banditry. There's no muharaba. The crime is virtually almost down to zero. Can we say that for democratic ways and means? When democratic ways and means are pushed, the same flunkies of Ecowas who are now going after Niger and are angry with Burkina Faso. The Tubab American government came in and told them they want them to accept now homosexuality. There's no time in history that the Tubab could have came into Omar Dal, or they could have came into Ahmed Baba Sudani, okay, or to Mansa Musa, or to Usman bin Fodio, and any of these great ancestral brothers, and try to push down their throat homosexual deviancy on them. They would have fought them. But because these leaders here are not the same caliber, the Tubab is laughing at them. He said, you know, I got these guys in my hip pocket. Now let me go ahead and destroy them more. Let's open up all the whoredom. Let's bring in the drugs, and now it's bringing homosexuality. and Ecowas is backing that. We here on the continent see them for what they are, that they're nothing more than flunkies. And who's behind them is the Americans and the British and the French. We know this. In the Sharia, I will say this for the record. Now, you know, I've talked about this. I've been talking about this hotbed. I've said many times before this latest coup that the Sahel will not rest. It will always have something happening in it. Now we're over going to the central western part of the Sahel, and back over now we go to the eastern part. We have Sudan is again erupting. We have Darfur. Remember the talk I gave about the green blacks and the blue blacks? Now they're back at it again. We got the Afro Fulani Arabs. Okay, they're back in this, and now there's even reports of them moving into Chad, perhaps to overthrow them, to force them into the fray. So either way you turn, if you go to the left, it's to the west. If you go to the right, you got Sudan. It's in a turmoil right now, and a lot of that's because of what has happened. Their relationships with the Tubab, and they ran democracy. Subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like that. He says this in the Quran. And we Muslims are to govern by that. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. Subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't say, he said, you rule by what I've revealed to your prophet, ﷺ. And democracy is not revealed by Subhanahu wa ta'ala. None of the prophets of old, Moses, ﷺ, he was not champion of democracy, was he? He was champion of the Torah. How about Jesus, ﷺ? He said in the New Testament, he said, he's not here to tear down the Torah, he's here to enforce it. That's right, you Christians. He said he was here to enforce that. What do the Christians follow today? They follow everything other than what Jesus, ﷺ, we know him as Isa, ﷺ, what he said. See, so when we look at this in retrospect, democracy has no business. And we have people, my generation, still talking about democracy and whatnot, how it can flourish. It cannot flourish in Africa. We still have the problems because it's a man-made laws, and each one of us have our own definitions. This is why there's so many coups and so much turmoil and bad governance, because we can't get it right. I recommend that we implement the Sharia in majority Muslim countries to start this off in a 3-year program. We just don't go from one day to 100% Sharia, because a lot of people don't understand Sharia, and the Americans and the British and French are going to fight it because they're going to be pushed out, and the Russians too. But let me say this in regard to Russia has now made some headway in their country. They have now begun to champion the Islamic banking system, because even Putin, even though he's, he goes here and here, but one thing for sure, the biggest Muslim population we know is in Russia. It's not in England, it's in Russia. He is now put in order to allow Islamic banking in majority, cities and so forth in Russia, where there's a large amount of Muslim population. He's allowing Islamic banking. We don't even have that in Muslim lands. We don't even have Islamic banking, but he's implementing it in his land, and it's the land of the kuffar. See, so we start to see these things, and everything is fluid. There's a lot of changes here, but my recommendation is a 3-year program, brothers and sisters, where we have, let's take, for example, I'm going to use this example because there's a lot of brothers. I have a lot of Fulani brothers and kinfolk in Nigeria. Fulani, a lot. Let's look at Nigeria. The president of Nigeria is Fulani. The president of Nigeria is a Muslim. His second command is a Muslim. The most heralded, most strongest ulama, fuqaha, as we know in West Africa, is in Nigeria. Let's talk it and be honest. It's in Nigeria. We have the implementation of the Sharia already in northern Nigeria. It may be weak in a lot of areas, but we still have it there. We have a 3-year program where the president implements 20% Sharia to 30% Sharia, introduction, classes, and advertisement to get the people. And if the Christians and others begin to understand what the Sharia is, they will be more receptive of it. Right now, they listen to the Tubab because the Tubab has made a point in their media to lambaste the Sharia because they know it works. That's why they fought it. And that's why they want to keep us in a position with democracy, because they know they can't even get it right. So how can we get it right when they can't even get it right? See? So this program, the second year, will go now from about 30% to about maybe 6% of the Sharia. And we'll start to open up the Islamic courts, and we'll start to train our policemen as well to be Hezbollah, where they will enforce the Sharia. We'll educate our non-Muslim population to explain that they have rights to practice their own faith, because a lot of people believe that under the Sharia, it's over. You have to convert to Islam. It's not true. That's a falsehood. And whoever's doing that is wrong under the Sharia. Who's have the Sharia, and if you have some Jews and you have some Christians, and you come with a sword and say, hey, look, hey, we're ruling the land now. I'm sorry, man, you can't go to your synagogue. You can't go to the church. No, that's not under the Sharia. You're supposed to live in peace with them. Yes, and there's some, I don't want to get deep into the Sharia, but there's some conditions in this that is very beneficial for them, okay? Very, very beneficial for them. Now, the third year, we have 100% of the Sharia. By this time, everybody is kept abreast on what the Sharia. Watch what would happen to Nigeria. This big, most brightest and smartest player in Nigeria, some of the most gifted of our Islamic scholars are right there. If the Sharia was implemented, Subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless that land. Even the Christians and the Jews who are there, because we have Nigerian Jews who are black. We have them. We have Hebrews. We have Hebrews there in Nigeria. They've been there for centuries upon centuries. They would benefit under the Sharia. So this 3-year program would essentially do this. Now, what's going to happen with that? The Fulani herdsmen, gone. The bandits, gone. Boko Haram, gone. The Muharaba are going in between, between this Nigerian states and so forth and so on. That's gone. The Mujahideen fi sabilillah, gone, because now they have a voice. They have a voice, and they have rights. We'll have a government that will give rights to everybody. The Fulani herdsmen will have their rights. The farmers will have their rights. The ethnic squabbles will be handled in such a way that it will bring peace and security to the country, and will be the model. Because the democratic ways and means that are being pushed in Nigeria or any other place is not working, and it won't work. And Subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you as a Muslim, you read what Subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran. He's warned you and told you, don't use other governance than him and taking others as your partners. And democratic ways and mean is like shirk billah, because you are taking something that doesn't belong to Subhanahu wa ta'ala and you're worshiping it and following it. Now we have presidents who are Muslims in Ecowas who are strong democratic pushers. They are almost essentially, to me, made Ridda and Deen. Ridda means apostasy. So this is my recommendation on that. And to make matters even more, if you look at Surah Yusuf, Subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in English, Prophet Joseph, we know him as Yusuf, alayhi salatu salam. If you read what he has said, he was talking about what Subhanahu wa ta'ala said, that there's no governance except his, and that this is what governs him. This is what he goes by. So ECOWAS, brothers and sisters, when we look at this, it's nothing more than a body being controlled again by the international TUBOB Western powers. And they're willing to send young black men to go fight other young black men to kill them on behalf of this international community. And what's so funny about this, how fluid this situation is in Niger, the Russians are going around the bastards and said, hey, yeah, I'm TUBOB and I'm not a Muslim, but I'm going to come here and back the brothers, and I'm going to back the Muslims. And the Wagner, which I'm not defending them. I'm just talking about in this circumstance because I have to talk what is right. I've talked against the Wagner group for weeks. I'm only making a point to show you how tenuous the situation is. And you have the Western powers over here, and you have Russia, the Russians on the other side. And we're being played as usual. The problem in Niger is still run by ethnic loyalties. I don't care what anybody tries to throw. I've seen CNN. I've seen all these, even some of the Western backed African stations talking about Niger. Brothers and sisters, let me tell you something. As you heard me say many times before, especially in the northern central tier of Africa, is still run by ethnic loyalties. If you don't have a playbook, you cannot understand that country. If it's Sudan, you got to understand who is an Arab, who is not an Arab. And those in the western part of Sudan, you have to understand who are the blue blacks and the green blacks. Who are their loyalties to? Who are the Afro-Arabs? How about the Fulani Arabs who are there? You have to understand that. Niger, you have to understand what's happening. You got the Afro-Arabs, and the ex-president is Afro-Arab. You have a large Hausa population and Fulani population. And you get the Afro-Tuareg on top of that. You have all of these groups that's there, and they have problems because the democratic ways and means governance is no good. And those groups are upset. And when those groups now are aided by the TUBOB, this erupted. And this is what has happened in Niger, what happened in Mali, and happened in Burkina Faso in particular. So here we have they play a major role in this. The Afro-Tuareg and Afro-Arabs possess more than an alliance. They have more of an alliance than they do. But the Hausa and Fulani are cousins, are out and out cousins. But they can't seem to work together. Because if the Hausa and the Fulani in Niger work together, they could take Niger and bring it back. Because you got to remember something, brothers and sisters. The Berlin Conference of 1884 and 1885, they divided and split up Nigeria as we understand today. Niger was not Niger. It was made to Niger because the Europeans sliced up Africa like a cake, and they started handing it out to the powers and began to put artificial borders. And those artificial borders are still here today. And this is why we are not free, because we can't travel to go see our brothers. It's very difficult. And the TUBOB sits in the background. When they see the visas, they go in and they go, hey, yeah, master, there's Yahya over there in Morocco. He's black. He's this, he's that. And he wants to come here to see his brothers in Ghana. They say, no, we don't want him here. And they, as a good boy, they go ahead and stamp, no, he cannot enter the country. This is what was happening. And they make suspect. But then how about racist white groups? They come in and out of here when they want. Nobody stops them and they get visas. See, this is by design. So who is in the power and those who are overthrowing it? We know who's behind this. We understand what's behind it. the alliance with the Tubac forces, because they're sitting pushing. They have been doing this. When they, in slavery time, they did the same thing. When the Portuguese became strong and powerful and rich off selling black folk, our ancestors, they began to do the same thing they're doing now. They began to overthrow certain leaders in West Africa in order for them to gain control. Now they're doing the same thing again. Ecowas is nothing more than the new from the 1800s, where the Tubacs behind them. Now they got new black faces here to do the fighting for them. I don't support Ecowas at all, nor do I like the AU. We know what they're supposed to do, but they're being controlled and manipulated and funded by the enemies. And they're no use for us, no use to help us. Can we say democratic ways and means supporters best protect Niger? Brothers and sisters, I'll let you answer that. Do you believe democratic ways and means have been supportive for, say, for how many decades of Niger or Nigeria or Ghana or Togo or the Gambia or Senegal or any other places like Mauritania, any place like this? Have they been best to protect our assets, our resources, and our people? Our women, our beautiful African women, are being trafficked as we speak now, and we can't touch them. Is it under the Sharia law? No. Under the democratic ways of means, our sisters are being trafficked as we speak now out of here to Europe and to the Middle East. And many of them nothing more than sex slaves now. Nobody's stopping them. I told you about what happened here about 5-6 years ago when they caught some of these French bastards who came to wrestle some of our women and take them there. They caught them in the desert. When they found out, they knew who they were. They trafficked these ladies. They got them and executed them. See? So now, how about the Wagner Group in Russia? Are they best? No. The Americans? No. The French? No. The Ecowas? No. The AU? No. None of these groups can do the protection of the country. How about the Mujahideen groups? You look at that. Let's look at it for what it is. 99% of them, they cannot, because they have some things wrong with them. In particular, those who have aligned themselves, with the AQ and with ISIS. Okay, that is a problem in itself, as you heard me talk about for weeks. But we have independence. But again, that's why, brothers and sisters, you have to ferret out the news, because you see even the Fulani herdsmen have been classified as an AQ. I mean, when I read that, I start to laugh, and I see the West push this a lot. The Fulani herdsmen are, in particular, are an entity all to their own. So, but the West has lumped you, me, all of us. Anyone who's a devout Muslim, he's connected to either AQ or IS. That's all they know. Oh, this guy, yeah, oh yeah, okay, I know. Oh yeah, he's AQ. It's easy for them to come out and accuse somebody of something. Oh, he's a scholar in Nigeria. Oh yeah, he's part of ISIS. It's wrong. We know that Ecowas invasion, they were talking about it, but now I will get more into this. It's been averted. Alhamdulillah. Northern Nigeria would have been, because of the ethnic ties to Niger, we would have had some problems. And the Muslims were not happy about the president entering the fray, threatening to invade as the leader of Ecowas. They were not, still not. The Colonial Powers Conference broke up Nigeria and formed Niger, okay? And we know this. So when they took over, they began to, as you know, they carved up Africa like a piece of cake at a wedding and start passing out, okay, the British, you guys have these, the Dutch, you have that, and this so forth and so on. And this play has still bothered us today we should get rid of these borders and open up the borders, which was voted on and approved, but they still have not opened up the borders yet for you and me to travel to see our brothers other places. Brother, sister, I want you to think about something. The 2020 meeting that happened between the Mujahideen groups, we had some Fulani herdsmen, we had the Messina group, we had some other smaller Fulani militias, we had the AQ was there, we had the IS was there, we had the Ansar Deen, who are Afro-Arabs and Tuaregs, and we had the Aswad, who are mostly Afro-Tuaregs. All of them met. After a series of wholesale killings, you heard me report, that happened in Mali. And they met. But they could not come up with a consensus on how to attack the problem. I think Subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you guys are not ready yet. Because as far as I'm concerned, as long as you have the AQ and ISIS involved in this, it's not going to go anywhere. Because their mode is not the same as the Fulani herdsmen. That's why I told you, as you heard me say for weeks, they have no business being here. They should go back to fight back in the Middle East, go back to Jazeera Arab. That's where they belong. Even if the brothers who have adopted to the AQ and to ISIS style, let them go with their brothers to Jazeera Arab and fight over there. Because our problems here in the Sahel is totally different. And because we have so many close kinships and whatnot, to go kidnap and to go hurt and bomb and kidnap your brother, it takes on you see the Sahel, how volatile it is because of the ethnic loyalties. The AQ and IS or ISIS, they understand that. That's why they deployed certain Africans to go and join with them. But it's not enough. But they had this meeting. And the Messina group and the Fulani herdsmen didn't want to have nothing basically to do with the AQ and ISIS because they understand that they want them to enter into kidnapping like Boko Haram, because Boko Haram made allegiance, we all know that, to ISIS. And ISIS MO is to do that. Robbing, being muharaba, burning, killing, innocent people, terrorizing, and so forth and so on. The Messina group said, no, we don't want that. We want to fight the government on, straight up and take them out and issue the Sharia. The AQ said, no, this is the way we do it. We rob, we steal, we firebomb, we go after the innocent. So these groups, Fulani herdsmen and the Messina group, began to fight after this meeting, fight the AQ and ISIS. And then the Fulani herdsmen broke away from all and they formed their own group. This is why the Global Index called them the fourth most dangerous group in the world today. They're not AQ, brothers and sisters. They're not ISIS. It's a lie. They're not that. They're independent. And yes, we have Fulani who joined the AQ. We have Fulani who joined ISIS. We have Fulani even with the Ansar Deen. We have Fulani even with the Azawad. The Fulani are everywhere, and just about all Mujahideen groups, you will find Fulani in it. But the herdsmen are independent, and they're lone wolf Mujahideen groups. See? So that's why I want to get you to understand that. Now, here's the beauty. We have to give our kudos to the president of Nigeria. He authorized the ulama finally, as you've been hearing me scream for weeks. He allowed a selected group of our brothers from Nigeria, some are scholars, imams, intellectuals, to go into Niger and to broker a future talk and a peace deal and to get them to talking. So we have to give kudos to the president of Nigeria for sanctioning that. He allowed that to happen. So he saw that now we need somebody to jumpstart to bring peace. And he realized, because we need our intellectuals, Islamic intellectuals, because you're dealing with Muslims, even though they may be wayward. But you see, even though in Niger they're wayward, but they still accepted the scholars, Islamic scholars, to come in to talk. So they brokered a peace deal. Now we'll see what's going to transpire out of this. We hope that these talks will bring peace. We'll see what's going to happen. But we have one hothead going on right now. We have Ghana is going out of control. Ghana's killing Fulani, and now they're going after Burkina Faso, the migrants, and expelling them. They're claiming terrorism. You know who's behind the security forces of Ghana? It's the Americans. And you saw my program weeks ago where you had a commander of one of these security forces who hate Fulani. He was there that day. There's people to go to kill Fulani in the north. He asked, he says, are the Fulani better than us? Remember by talking, I showed that film of him talking about that. Now Ghana is acting as though they are hotheads. And they're starting to do things that anger everybody in the region. And they're claimed under the preventing terrorism. But we know they're getting their marching orders from the US because they're an integral part of Ecowas. Now, if anyone has picked up and read the intelligence reports that are been made available, Niger is threatened to persecute the former president, Bazoum, who's Afro-Arab. And it's interesting. One of the allegations is because of having foreign bases in the country. Just about all of Africa is guilty of that. All of them have Americans, Russians, French, German, Belgium. They have some TUBAB entities in it. They're going to prosecute them for one of these things here is because they had too many. You have the Russians there. You got the Americans there. You have the French, in particular, army bases there. And one of the reports that came out showed that Bazoum had a contract with the French. And this is why they removed him, because they had no other choice. The Mujahideen groups are starting to make headway, and they still are running large portions of Niger. Let's make no mistake about this, brothers and sisters. The Mujahideen groups in Niger run a large portion of Niger now. They knew, the junta knew, the military knew that they had to remove this man because he was not fighting, quote unquote, the Muslim brothers. He wasn't fighting them correctly. One of the documents came out, showed that he has got a contract with France where France took 95% of the wealth of this uranium. Do you know the billions that's generated from that? And only Niger got 5%. What African brother could authorize such a thing? He did. He's not the only one. We have this running everywhere. The TUBAB gets 90% of our wealth, and we get only pennies back from it. See? And also charging him that he gave the natural resources like I talked about. Most African states are guilty of this. Oh, salam alaikum, my dear brothers, Karaba, Musa, Shukran Jazilan, brother, thank you. Yes, the Tuareg are African. You heard me say that. I said Afro-Tuareg. Yes, it's true. My dear brother, this is a true. Yes, I said this. They are African. I didn't say yeah, we shouldn't call them Afro-Tuareg, because reason why I say that, because it's a designation, because people don't understand about, they look at the Tuareg and they look at the Arabs and they want to push them into some other category, but they're here in Africa. So in order for us to get that mindset to say they are African, because many Tuareg are jet black in color, and many Afro-Arabs, you look at the president of Niger, he's light brown skinned, but he looks like some African Americans I know back in the States, but I call them Afro-Arabs because their descendants came out from the Middle East, okay, and they settled into the region. The Tuareg have always been there, but I call them that to make sure our people understand that they're African. So I call them Afro-Tuaregs to make sure they understand that they are our brothers, they're Africans. It's true. They are yes, yeah. I remember you telling us before. Yes, my dear brother, I had the same mixture. I have a great great grandmother 5 generations back. She was this Tuareg and Fulani. You're right, same as mine. Salam alaikum, my dear brother Marcus. Thank you for showing up, my dear brother. Um, and give thanks to the Emir. Yes, he played an integral part and in the thing with Niger, but also played a very important part is Abdullahi Bala Lau. Okay, the head of the ulama, the scholars who went over there to Nigeria. We have to give him his kudos because he played intricate part in this, and the Emir also has played some parts of this as well, and we have to give them their kudos because this is only right. And I don't understand this. What this? I don't know what he's saying here. Let me. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what he's saying. Oh, son Adam, how you doing, my dear brother? It's nice to hear from you again. Thank you. Yes, the things was a shock to some, but yes, my brother has said it right. There's always shocking evidence, brothers and sisters, about what's going on in Sahel, and you're not going to get a lot of it from the news agencies because they're not going to give it to you right. They have it slanted. I try to break down the news so we all can understand it better, because as I told you now, what's driving many of the things that's going on is ethnic loyalties. Ghana is no different. Ghana is on a killing spree of Fulani because, again, as you heard that commander say, he doesn't like the Fulani. He asked his people to go kill them. He said, "Look, are they better than us?" Out of some some kind of hatred of some sort, even though they're black people. See, so this we have to break all of these things down because this is important. Okay, and so when we see these things, the brothers and sisters, as we talk about this issue here, we have to be very wary of Ecowas and any of these groups, especially being supported by the West. We have to be very, very cognizant. And each one of us should pick up the books and start to learn and start to follow certain people in order to get the information and get it right. Because if you follow BBC or some others, you'll get cursory, but the minute they start to talk about the Muslims, the only thing they will say is AQ backed or they're ISIS backed. I already told you they even tried to lump the Fulani herdsmen as saying that they're AQ, which is a lie, because the Global Terror Index said Fulani are what? The Fulani herdsmen are a different entity. Period. It's true. And they called them the fourth most deadliest group available. They did not call them AQ because they know they're not. But in order for it to generate you and me to hate our brothers, they call them AQ, or they call them ISIS. And our brothers, the Fulani herdsmen, are not neither any of these guys. Okay, some of the Messina jumped ship because they wanted to get rich, because there was some that said, look, you join us, you could be muharaba, you can rob, you can kidnap and steal, and you'll make your wealth. Some of our Fulani brothers who had nothing left joined that so they can get rich by these ill-gotten means. Yes, they're there, but the Fulani herdsmen are not. Okay, because I'll give you an example that you saw in the program I gave. The ex-president of Nigeria, he's a herdsman. Is he a terrorist? No. Sheikh Gumi is what? He's a Fulani herdsman. Is he a terrorist? No. And they belong to Mayati Allah. Okay, the advocacy group for Fulani. So he's not a terrorist. I belong now. I'm not a terrorist. See, so we have to be very careful, brothers and sisters, on who is what and who is actually quote unquote a terrorist. If you look at this thing, we can look at the United States as the biggest terrorist because they've killed millions since 9/11, millions upon millions of Muslims, and they still at it today. And here they're now backing Ecowas to go fight in Nigeria and everywhere else. And their mission is to make all of Africa under democratic ways and means. It will be a failed continent under it. And what makes it funny, as a side note, you heard me say at the early part of this, Putin's a step. Now look, yes, he's Tubab. Yes, he's not a Muslim, but he fields the biggest Muslim population in Europe. The brothers over there can go in and out of the masjids, not like in some Muslim countries where like what's happening with me now. I mean, I should be able to walk in peace and whatnot to the masjid. I cannot. I should be able to make my prayer inside the masjid. I cannot, because they hit you in the back of the head, because they throw all the brothers out and they put miscreants and thugs in there. And so these guys are not Muslims. They're miscreants and thugs. They're there being paid by the Americans to come in there to go after strong Muslims, especially me. So when I go to the line, what they do, they do this. I mean, see, this is what I'm talking about. In Russia, he said, we're not having that. There's no such thing as that. See? So, and he's implementing now the Islamic banking system in Muslim majority areas. That's unheard of. That's unheard of. See, so again, brothers and sisters, we have to give you the news for what it is. Am I backing Russia? No, I'm not. I don't want Russia I don't want any of the Tubab nations in Africa. And I don't like the Wagner group because we know what they have done to our Fulani population. But I have to give you the news for what it is. When there's something right, I have to give you that, even though I don't like the Tubab Western powers. But when they do something right, I have to give you that news. Because this is right, what we're supposed to do as Muslims. The Ecowas mission, and I'll be getting ready to close here, brothers and sisters, is to promote and defend democracy. We are Africans. We're not Tubab. We are Africans. And we have a majority of the Muslim states in Ecowas. These are Muslim rulers, and some are Fulani. How can they go back this when Subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you in the Quran no to it? And you heard me talk about the class of this, Surah 5, verses 44 to 47. Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave stern warnings for these Muslims who want to govern by something other than his law. See, so by keeping African states in democracy, we'll keep having coups. The Tubab will run us. They will control us. They will steal our resources. They will allow us to kill one another. They will arm the military groups to go kill other black faces. The so-called modern secular Muslims will be in control of the countries, so that way they can control them. See, so we have a lot of problems here, brothers and sisters. We have a lot of problems. And so we have to be very wary of Ecowas. And as you heard me say before, the West Africa is no different than what's going on in Sudan. It's driven by ethnic loyalties. Nigeria, Togo, Ghana, it goes all the way across. We still have these ethnic loyalties and whatnot. Asabia, we still have that in Arabic. We have this problem. In order for you to understand the countries, if you talk about Mauritania, you got to understand the ethnic groups are there. If you talk about Mali, you have to understand who's there, the doggone, the Fulani, and so forth and so on. You have to understand Mandinka. You got to understand who's there. Burkina Faso, who's there? You got to understand ethnic groups. Everything that's in Africa, in particular, you must understand the ethnic groups in it. Don't listen to CNN, because CNN and them will misguide you. You pick up the book and start learning about your brothers, so that way you can't misjudge them. And before you get ready to call somebody a terrorist, when you see me, because CNN will classify me as a terrorist, all of the Western will say I'm a terrorist, and they have not defined it. Another man who's killing over here, who's white, they don't call him a terrorist. He's actually doing the killing. They don't call him terrorist, but they call me. I'm not killing anybody. I have no army. I have no guns. I have no military body behind me. I don't have no airplanes. I'm not killing anybody. I don't have no weapons of any sort. But the white man, the two-bob next to me, who do have all this, he's not a terrorist, but I am. You see what I mean? The terrorism laws have to be revamped, and we have to understand, put a new definition of what a terrorist is. See, not because you are a black man and you're Muslim, you're a terrorist. That's wrong. The Ecowas is backing the play of the two-bob in this regard, and Ghana is starting to get out of hand with their killings is going on, and now throwing people out. And because of the democratic system and because of the closed border, the Ghanaians think, okay, this is it here. I don't want to see other Africans come in it. This is wrong, brothers and sisters. This attitude is wrong. And because of the democratic system and bad governance, Africans need to move and to find safety for their families. They don't want to move from Burkina Faso, but they have no choice. And we should accept them. We're not talking about those who are criminals and mafia. No, we're not talking about that. You don't accept them. But normal children and women and peaceful people, allow them to come in. And that way they can have some form of protection. There was an interesting article by the Christian Monitor talking about the here about the coup in Niger, excuse me. They're saying because of that, and because what is happening in the Sahel is moved America's chance to basically control it, and because of democracy, their own things that they pulled, it's them, brothers and sisters. Again, we've talked about this issue many times. The African groups are being pushed to overthrow their excuse me, that's about homosexuality. Excuse me, that's not it. Yeah, here we go. Their own treachery has caused them now to fall out of favor. Subhanahu wa ta'ala has ways of working around these people. And so the Americans trained to have overthrow governments. Now they are suffering because they cannot promote democracy. So they found a new whipping boy, the Ecowas, to go to fight for them now, to push democracy and to keep the Americans in control of the region. The Ecowas is not being backed by the Russians. See, so when we see this for what it is, brothers and sisters, again, see, these articles now are talking about the Americans and what they have done and how they've done since 9/11. They have created so much animosity towards the country that the Muslims everywhere are against them. But they have put hand-picked Muslims into power, and Ecowas is their last base that they have where they can push somebody to do the fighting for them. Make no mistake about it, brothers and sisters. Make no mistake about this. You look at this map I have here in English. You look at this. You see a great portion now of the Mujahideen groups are controlling Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso. Nigeria, who wants to go to fight their brothers in Niger, can't. It's been proven they can't even control Boko Haram. So how they're going to go into Niger and go and fight and take over and remove the military out of Niger when they can't even beat up Boko Haram? They can't even tackle the Fulani herdsmen. So how can they go into Niger to take out a army that's heavily armed, 100 times over more than the Fulani herdsmen? See, so that is it's asinine. But cooler heads prevailed. Our brothers came in, and kudos to the ulama there, our selected brothers who went into Niger to as a buffer to talk to our brothers and to get them to the table to talk. This is the way to Muslims. If you listen to our brother scholar here, Abdullahi Abala Lau. How did he dress the audiences? Remember, I've been talking for weeks. I've been waiting for this. I've been listening to these African leaders talk about communist ways and means, this and that. That brother said right Islamically. He praised Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he praised our Prophet alayhi salam. It was a breath of fresh air because I have not heard this. Now, of course, at Islamic programs, yes, our brothers talk this, but this is in an international forum. So he talked it good, and he promoted Subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he promoted our Prophet alayhi salam. He left no doubt that he was a Muslim and a devout Muslim. So kudos to that brother for that. So this problem, brothers and sisters, is bigger than what we think. And we're gonna have to really put our heads together. And you who cannot do anything, learn the region, brothers and sisters. Please learn the region. Learn the players in it. Learn who these brothers are. Because you have to understand who's there and why they're fighting. You, as a Muslim, you're not to take what the Tubab says. I'm going to tell you that now. Subhanahu wa ta'ala, you heard my class. He talked about when these evil people come to you. Not every Tubab. You know what you heard? I gave you a definition about the Tubab I'm talking about. When these evil Tubab come to talk to you and tell you to come to fight me, or to go fight Sheikh Gumi, or go to fight the ulama in Nigeria, or to go after the Fulani herdsmen because they're devout. You should not do it based upon what this wicked Tubab who's done this say. Subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered you to check it out first. He's ordered you to do this in Surah 49. You read that. See, so the Ecowas are not doing that. They're telling, look, I want you to go in there and fight Niger. They wanted to do it, but cooler heads prevail. And I still say, as you heard me say before, I gave this class, here you to your right, here's Niger, and over to your left is Burkina Faso. I still say to you, this should be an emirate, an Islamic emirate. Why? It would solve many of the problems. The countries are already failed. And we have leaders in it, but they won't be able to hold it. The areas that you see to the north, to the far right, and so forth in Niger are being run under the Sharia as we speak now. And many other parts. In some parts of Burkina Faso, we have brothers, Mujahideen groups are running the Sharia law as well. We have some Sharia law in Mali, which is to your left. So I proposed that months back, to give you that indication that these two, Niger, should be out of it. We should push Niger and Burkina Faso, as you see in the English map here, and now start to push Islamic ways and means, because it's not going to work. It's already failed. And those people are suffering. The French are taking 95% of the proceeds from uranium alone. Now the Wagner Group is taking the gold mines and diamond mines. Niger is one of the poorest nations in the world. How we have all this mineral wealth and they can't, and the Niger former president, Bazoum, who's Afro-Arab, gave away the rights and let the Tubab steal the wealth. And he put their army bases in the country too, to control the country. So this is why he was overthrown. And the military realized that we have Mujahideen group there in Mali, in Niger, and they're not being controlled. And they were going to eventually, you heard one of the former minister, he said this area is going to be ready to be taken by these Mujahideen groups within a 5-year period. The military of Niger understood that. That's why they overthrew. They say, look, if we don't do something, we're not going to be able to stop the Mujahideen. So they threw them out. They threw out the ex-president and his ruling party. See, so brothers and sisters, we have to look at this for what it is. I got brothers here. Thank you, my dear brother. Thank you very much. And I mentioned in my class, the embassies located everywhere. Yes, we have to have embassies. Islamic law, there's nothing. You can have, a mithaq, because we have modern times, and the Sharia has to be revamped to a certain degree. Why? Because in the 1400s, 1400 years ago, there was no such thing as embassies. There was no such thing as cell phones. There was no such things as telephones or the car. Okay, the internet. So we have to make ijtihad and make new rulings in order to put these modern things in it. To have a treaty with a kuffar group, is nothing wrong with that. It's okay as long as they're not there to kill. Our African countries allow the Tubab to put their army bases, and they use their countries to launch attacks on other Africans. That's forbidden under the Sharia law. Yes, thank you, my dear brother. Thank you very much. And my brother Sukai, yes, even Bilal Sudan was considered themselves Moorish. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that, about what is considered. I go by something that our famous ancestral Sheikh Ahmed Baba Sudani talked about this issue. Remember in Timbuktu, he's one of the greatest of all scholars, and he's one of the five greatest scholars of Timbuktu, and they had some brilliant scholars at that time. Ahmed Baba Sudani, Rahimahullah, he talked about this, why he adopted the word Sudani. And many of the scholars at that time began to add Sudani as their last name. Because if you look at the Arabic, it means black. You understand? And representing black man. Bilad Sudan means the land of black people. So when many of the ancestral brothers of Mali and our greatest scholars, they begin to take the list, like Yahya Muhammad Sudani, Ahmed Baba Sudani. They didn't call themselves Moors. They said Sudani. They used the Arabic word. So there's, I don't want to get excused, but I don't want to get there. But they used the word Sudan, which has to do with a lot of black people. Okay, and in other words, they took this name. So that is something that we can discuss at another time. Both, the kingdoms. Yes, the kingdoms. I've been talking about this for a long time. Bilad and Sudan, we have many, and some were not Muslim. We have to, like the Ghana Empire. We've had those. We have many big, famous empires. We had that, but the greatest empires were those who were run by the Muslims. That's been proven because they were the most richest. That's been proven time and time again. So we have to look at that for what it is, and go by that. Well, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yeah, okay, my dear brother, thank you very much, and all of you, thank you. And I'm about ready to close here. And those who like my talks, please subscribe to me, and so you can get your updates. I try to come on once a week, but I'm older now, and sometimes there's things going on, and sometimes I'm kind of tired too, because I take my walks and I do things, and there's things come up, and I try to get news, and I try to filter out the news to help everybody. Plus, I do a lot of writings and so forth and so on. But I try to do something every week. I try to give you something so you can look at the news from another aspect to break down from this. And my position. I'm a staunch African. Bottom line, I'm Fulani, and I'm proud of that. And I talk, and I want to benefit Africa. That's upsetting many black people. I don't care about that, because if I can't love myself and my people, then what kind of man am I? And even though I was born in the United States, but Africa has always been in my heart. I made my trek here. I accepted who I am. So I try to give talks, and because I'm an African historian on top of that, I believe that Africa is for the Africans, not meaning that the Jews are not allowed. I don't mean that way the Tubab can't come. That's not what I mean by that. I'm talking about for our determination, Africans should determine their future. And I believe wholeheartedly that the Muslims should be leading the way in this, because we have the perfect example by the Prophet ﷺ, and we have brilliant statesmen. Just this indication here showing the statesmen who went into Niger, they brokered some peace out of that. See, so this is what I push this, and I want to see our people prosper, and I want the Sahel to be in peace. But we can't have peace when it's in democracy. We cannot. It's not going to work, brothers and sisters. We have to have a strong law, and the Islamic law will put a stop to this crap. Because the rigid nature of how the government is run, the people have a lot of freedom in it. But crime, banditry, robbery, whoredom, homosexuality, all that is dealt with, okay, in Islamic law. You heard what I said about this. I told you I believe that we should have a three-year period, and I'd like to see this model done in Nigeria first, because we already have northern Nigeria is already have some Sharia, even though they run in Sharia, but we know there's some things that's not right in it. But I would like to see Nigeria run the Sharia in a 3-year program, because why? Nigeria is an integral part of Africa, and it's a heartbeat of Africa as well. We got some of the most brilliant people. We have some of the most richest Africans are there in Nigeria. We have the most brilliant scholars are there in Nigeria as well. So you have a whole plethora of different individuals, intellectuals of all sorts, economic. We have doctors. I mean, Nigeria is a powerhouse. It would be even more powerful if it began to run the Sharia. Subhanahu wa ta'ala will give a blessing to it. It will strengthen the military. We'll have an economy that is so strong and whatnot. People will say, well, why are you talking about Nigeria? Because you don't live in Nigeria. Yes, but I'm a Muslim. I have to talk what's right and what's not right. And we have to give kudos when it's right. We have to say, and we have to chastise and kick in the butt when we're wrong. That's the Muslim's way to do it. But I would like to see this 3-year program started in Nigeria. Many may disagree with me, but I believe Nigeria should be the focus point of this in a 3-year period. I'm going to tell you something. If Nigeria does this, it's going to take off. It's going to take off with all the oil revenue and everything else. And because now this will be regulated. All of the corruption will be regulated. Now we will have a leader. The people will put people into power, but not the way in democratic ways and means. And we will have the Sharia. We will have correctly trained police. We have bank, and the banks will know how to get the money under the Islamic system. And we'll have home ownership. We have land disputes that we had before. You go to Sharia court. A Fulani herdsman and his brother, the farmer, they can go to the court because they're fighting over water rights. The courts will look at that and they will make the decision according to the law, okay, and the past, because they will look back and see how did the past Qadi's judges rule under the Sharia, see, and they will look at that because we had that. Remember the Messina, okay, Messina had this dispute of the Fulani herdsmen and the farmers. They settled it. Kwame Nkrumah looked at that. Even though he was not Muslim, he implemented a program to give the Fulani herdsmen, their rights, and the farmer their rights, by giving them a corridor and said that the cattle could come in this way and they could graze and fatten their cattle in these areas here. Any of the cattle to graze over other area could be slaughtered. Okay, they had rules because came under the Messina group. They had these rules before this in the 1800s and the 1700s. See, so we'll go back to those laws. And lastly, I will stop here. The Sharia, it will stop a lot of the stuff. The president, okay, now will not be called president anymore. He'll be called the Sultan or the Emir, according to what's going to happen. In this case, it'll be Sultan because he'll be voted in. Before he starts to make actions, we'll have Islamic scholars around him to make sure he's correct. And there'll be fatwas given. Now we'll have everything opened up, and those fatwas will help to guide the people. Now the people who have problems in the cities, and say you have a husband and wife, they have a problem inside the house, they can go to the masjid, and then we have a scholar there. We have an imam who's well trained in issues of fiqh. He can give a ruling to help the wife. Maybe the wife had a baby, okay, for instance. Maybe she has spotting, you know what I mean, after and she want to know, when can I pray, when I can do this, he will have the answers for her. Maybe a husband who's having problems inside of his house, he can go to the imam of the masjid and get a fatwa so he can understand something. The imams get mediate family problems. The courts, it goes all the way down the line. I want to see this implemented, brother and sister, because this is the right way to go. We got to stop this democracy. It's not working for nothing. There's too much corruption everywhere. North Africa, Central Africa, South Africa, we have corruption. Every time you look at it, we have a hidden bank accounts that African leaders have stolen millions and millions of dollars in bank accounts outside and to our banks. See, and all of this, and nobody's punishing these people. You see, I want to see the Sharia law being implemented, and we have the people, and I want to see it first orchestrated in Nigeria, because I believe this. I picked this country for this because of the population, the size of the population, and the brilliance of the people there in it. Because you have brilliant and some of the smartest and most wealthiest people in Africa are there. So we should implement it there first. And I believe it'll work. A 3-year program will be advantageous for us all. We watch and look and see, once it's implemented, maybe Burkina Faso will fall. Maybe Niger will fall and come under the Sharia. Mali will fall and come under the Sharia, because they will have the model. Their Nigerian brothers ran the 3-year program under Sharia. They will start to implement the same thing. Mauritania, Morocco, I mean, it'll just fall until we'll start to have the Sharia, and Africa will flourish, brothers and sisters. It will flourish with the permission of Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because right now, he removed his hand from us, and we're suffering all. Christian, Muslim, and Hebrew, we all are suffering in Africa because of we're running the disbelievers' governance, and it's not helping none of us. It's making us criminals by our brothers and sisters take the wealth, and they steal it from us, and they give the wealth to these disbelievers. This has got to stop in order for us to progress in the future, and for our children to have a future. We have to put it into this, and the Sharia law would do that. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you for all those who showed up. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.